People often believe money is just numbers on a bank screen, a piece of paper, or a coin passed from hand to hand. But in truth, it carries a much deeper weight, a meaning that crosses centuries of history, beliefs, and human emotions. Money is like a mirror. It reflects not only how much you earn or spend, but also how you see yourself, how you value yourself, and how you position yourself in life. That's why some people, even with modest incomes, always seem to live with abundance and peace of mind, while others with high salaries live in constant debt, fear, and anxiety. Before it is material, money is symbolic and energetic. Those who don't understand this remain slaves to it. Those who learn how to build a conscious relationship with it discover that money is not the enemy, but an ally. In the 1920s, a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn began teaching something that still sounds radical today. She claimed that money has life, has personality, and responds to how it is treated. For many, this sounds absurd. How can paper have life? How can numbers react to emotions? But Florence's boldness was to show that it wasn't the money itself that had eyes and ears, but the relationship people created with it. For her, money was a language, one of the many ways in which the divine expressed abundance in the world. When you spoke to money, you were actually speaking to life, to God, to the universe. It wasn't superstition. It was reconnection. Think about the context she lived in. The United States had just gone through World War I and soon after collapsed into the Great Depression. Banks were failing, families were desperate, men were losing jobs, women were confined to domestic roles without financial autonomy. What would you tell someone in that environment? To simply have faith? To wait for better days? Florence didn't say that. She said, treat money as a friend. Welcome it with gratitude, bless it when it leaves, invite it back as you would invite a dear guest to visit again. To a world in crisis, this idea was scandalous, but also a relief. It gave people back a sense of power, dignity, and possibility. Many asked, but how do you talk to money? Florence explained it's simple. When money comes into your life, no matter how small, give thanks. Hold it in your hand, look at it, treat it as alive. When you have to pay a bill, don't curse it, don't complain. Say thank you, wish for it to return multiplied. And when you feel money is distant, invite it with dignity, not as a beggar, but as a friend. This practice didn't just transform finances, it reshaped the mind. By speaking to money with respect, you began to see yourself as someone worthy of prosperity. And life responded. Maybe you think this sounds naive or too mystical. But notice, most people live in conflict with money. They complain, they curse, they say things like, money slips through my fingers, there's never enough, money doesn't grow on trees. If you spoke that way about a friend every single day, how long do you think they would stay by your side? Money reacts the same way. These phrases become orders your mind absorbs and reinforces. Florence called them spiritual insults. When you insult money, it leaves. When you honor it, it approaches. Not because of magic, but because you shift your energy, your mentality, and your actions. One of the most famous stories was about Margaret, a seamstress surviving on small, low-paying jobs. She feared opening her wallet and seeing only coins. She constantly said, money never stays with me. And so her life reflected that belief: scarce work, ungrateful clients, little income. Then she applied Florence's teachings. Instead of cursing coins, she began holding each one and saying, you are my faithful friend. Thank you for being with me. Bring more of your family to visit. Within weeks, she received an offer to sew for an elegant shop in the city center. Her income tripled. Coincidence? Maybe. But for her, it was proof that money's energy responded to new treatment. Another case was Sarah, a young widow with 2 children. Desperate and hopeless, she turned to Florence. Florence told her calmly, speak to money as a protector. Welcome it like a friend who wants to care for you. Sarah began repeating every day, money, I welcome you with love. I know you want my good and the good of my children. In less than a month, relatives she hadn't heard from offered help, and she found a stable job. For her, that wasn't luck, it was response. Life had heard her voice. These stories spread, and women who had resigned themselves to scarcity began experiencing transformation. And it wasn't just about finances. It was about self-worth. It was about understanding you are not too small for life's abundance. Florence would say, "Money goes where it is loved, but runs from where it is feared." And she added, "To love money is not to idolize it, but to recognize it as one of the channels through which life manifests." Rejecting money is rejecting life itself. Her teaching was revolutionary, not just because it spoke of prosperity, but because it freed people from guilt, fear, and the belief that desiring abundance was wrong. Now, I bring this reflection to you. How many times have you cursed money? How many times have you felt ashamed for not having enough or guilty for wanting more? This toxic relationship is one of life's greatest blocks. You may work hard, study, hustle every day, but if your mind repeats, "Money is scarce, money isn't for me, it's never enough," your reality will keep mirroring those beliefs. What Florence taught was that changing this inner relationship is the key. Money isn't dirty. It isn't the enemy. It's energy that responds to respect, gratitude, and dignity. When you learn to speak to it like you would to an old friend, something changes inside. That change begins to attract new opportunities, open doors, and create paths. This is just the beginning of our journey. In this video, you will dive deeper into how this practice works and how to apply it practically in your daily life. And if this message already resonates with you, if you feel it stirring something within, subscribe now to Kokoro. This channel explores practical philosophy, wisdom that transcends cultures and eras, to bring clarity, discipline, and purpose to everyday life. This is a space to learn and grow, not with empty slogans, but with reflections that can truly transform your vision of the world. Subscribe, because this conversation has only just begun. Now we enter the hardest part of this path, the inner conflict. It is not the market, not the paycheck, not the government. The greatest battle is between what you say you want and what your conditioned mind does on autopilot. You say you want prosperity, but you repeat words of scarcity without noticing. You desire stability, but you treat money like a stranger. You dream of freedom, yet maintain habits that imprison you. The middle of the journey is always where truth is revealed. This is where we confront beliefs, emotions, and routines. This is where philosophy stops being theory and turns into training. The first step is to name the invisible enemy: inherited beliefs, fear of being judged, guilt for wanting more, pride that prevents asking for help, anger at unpaid bills that turns into shame, anxiety that makes simple decisions feel like crisis. All of this creates an emotional field that repels money. This is not mysticism. It is behavior. Shame makes you avoid looking at your bank account. Avoidance leads to disorganization. Disorganization brings debt. Debt increases shame. The cycle closes. To break it, you need light. Whatever is brought to consciousness loses power. The second step is to recognize cultural narratives. Phrases like "money is dirty," "good people don't care about it," "to prosper, you must exploit someone," "if you have too much, you must have sold your soul." These sayings sound moral, but amputate possibilities. The mind absorbs them as laws. Your actions contract. You avoid opportunities. There is no expansion while you live with shame. There is no wisdom while you live in denial. Replace those narratives with statements of responsibility. Money is energy in circulation. When it arrives, it allows me to serve better. When it leaves, it sustains chains of work. When it returns, it confirms alignment. Morality is not in money itself. It is in how it is used. Responsibility is not in the system. It is in your gesture. The third step is to observe your mental biases. Confirmation bias makes you see only proof of scarcity. Loss aversion makes the pain of losing $100 feel heavier than the joy of gaining $100, and that paralyzes good decisions. Anchoring makes you take one price, one salary, one lifestyle as the unshakable standard, and everything outside that looks impossible. Social comparison makes you measure your worth by what others display: sabotaging your own pace. These mechanisms are ancient, wired into human psychology. You don't defeat them with empty phrases. You defeat them with protocol. Protocol means discipline you follow, even when your emotions scream. So let's treat money as a student entering a dojo. The dojo is the place of repetition until the body learns. You don't argue with the mat. You train until your posture becomes natural. With money, it is the same. Correct practice reprograms you. And here I will give you 5 gates of abundance. Respect, order, circulation, purpose, expansion, not poetry. Practice, respect, stop insulting money. Eliminate words of scarcity for 30 days. No more self-deprecating jokes. No more curses when bills are due. Replace them with language of friendship. Thank you for arriving. Go and return multiplied. I take care of you. I use you with wisdom. Simple, short, firm. Say it out loud. Your mind needs to hear your body speaking. Order. What you respect, you organize. What you organize, you can find. What you find, you can direct. Create 3 mental and practical boxes. Foundation, growth, generosity. Foundation for essentials. Growth for investments and reserves. Generosity for giving and gifts. Open 3 separate accounts if you can. Set automatic percentages. Even if it starts as 1% for growth and 1% for generosity, it matters. The action is greater than the amount. Consistency builds identity. Identity drives behavior when motivation fails. Circulation. Money that sits in clutter rots. Money that flows in order renews. This does not mean spending recklessly. It means conscious flow. Pay what you owe with serenity and blessing. Negotiate respectfully. Request terms with honesty. Receive with dignity. Send with clarity of purpose. Write 1 word on your receipts. Blessing. Your brain needs visual anchors. Small rituals create big shifts. Purpose. Without purpose, the mind drifts. Money becomes noise. Purpose defines direction. Write 3 noble uses for money for the next 12 months. 1 for learning, 1 for health, 1 for service. Attach numbers and dates. Every time money arrives, mentally connect it to those 3 destinations. You are not receiving just numbers. You are receiving chapters of your future story. Expansion. Expansion is not luxury. It is duty for those who grow inside. Expansion means creating margin for the unexpected good. Reserve a small portion for opportunities. It could be as little as 1%. The symbol teaches your mind to trust life. When opportunity arrives, you will have energy ready to act. Without it, you just watch chances pass by. Now let's turn these gates into protocols. Simple, consistent, measurable. First protocol, a 30-day language detox. Write on paper the forbidden phrases. It's never enough. I don't deserve it. Money is a problem. Stick this on your fridge. Put another copy in your wallet. Every time an old phrase rises, replace it with a short mantra. I act with dignity. I manage with clarity. I multiply with wisdom. Count points at the end of each day. 0 for each slip, 1 point for each replacement. Aim for 21 points a week. Your brain likes scoreboards. Second protocol, entrance and exit ritual. Entrance, every amount, no matter how small, gets 3 gestures. Gratitude aloud, division into the 3 boxes, a quick note in a notebook. No complex spreadsheets. Just 1 line, date, amount, source, destination. Exit. Every bill paid receives a blessing. Write thank you on the receipt or in your notebook. The act is training. You are signing the flow. The brain learns through visual and motor repetition. Third protocol, journal of evidence. Your confirmation bias will try to prove nothing is changing. Disarm it with facts. Every night before bed, write 3 evidences of circulation in your favor. It might be a discount you received, free shipping, a client who responded, a debt repaid, a coffee someone treated you to. Don't argue about size. Record direction. In 4 weeks, you will have an inventory of proof against pessimism. Fourth protocol, the 1% rule. Every week, increase something healthy by 1%. 1% more saved. 1% more time studying finances. 1% more organized invoices. 1% more generosity. Micro expansions create macro results. The body accepts small steps. Pride doesn't notice. Change installs itself silently. Fifth protocol, 10-10-10 breathing for financial decisions. When anxiety hits, inhale for 10 seconds, hold for 10, exhale for 10. Repeat 3 times. Only then decide. This calms the body. It prevents impulsive spending. Philosophy is not only thought, it is embodied practice. There are obstacles we must name clearly. First, debt is identity. Many people carry debt so long they start calling themselves debtors. That label is poison. Change it to, I am reorganizing. Identity drives behavior. Then create a plan, list all debts from smallest to largest. Pay off the smallest first to build momentum. Negotiate rates. Keep others at minimum while building traction. Not miracle, method. Method wins over chaos. Second, single income as prison. One source creates fear. Fear drives poor choices. Open auxiliary streams ethically and simply. Offer a microservice with your skill. Teach something basic. Sell a digital asset. Don't chase brilliance. Chase consistency. Even 2 hours a week changes your curve over 6 months. Record separate income. Let your brain feel the diversity. Third, toxic comparison. Watching others showcase makes you sick. Define internal metrics. Percentage saved. Consecutive days of record keeping. Number of scarcity phrases replaced. Pages read. You are not competing with the feed. You are training on your mat. In the dojo, victory is over yesterday's self. Some will say this is too little. That 1% means nothing. That thanking coins is childish. That writing in a notebook is outdated. Observe their results. Often little order, much complaining, little consistency, many shortcuts. Long paths need small, steady steps. Practice beats opinion. The dojo always respects the quiet student who shows up daily over the brilliant one who disappears. Bring it back to the center. Money that arrives is not a judge, not a savior, not an enemy. It is a messenger. It brings news about your inner order. Where there is clarity, it rests. Where there is purpose, it flows. Where there is respect, it stays. Where there is fear, it escapes. This truth is harsh but freeing. It returns power to the only place it ever was, your gestures today. We have reached the final act. This is the moment where all pieces come together and meaning becomes clear. Up until now, we explored the root of the problem and the practices to confront it. Now the focus shifts to integration. This is where you understand that speaking to money, treating it as an ally, is not superstition or fantasy. It is spiritual discipline, emotional order, and practical training combined. Florence Scovel Shinn insisted that money is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. If you mistreat yourself, money will mistreat you. If you honor yourself, money will honor you. Think about the weight of that statement. Money is not a judge, nor a punisher, nor a savior. It is a mirror. It does not decide your value. It only reflects the posture you adopt in life. That is why the central question is not, how much do I make? But rather, how do I stand before life? Money reveals that answer more honestly than words ever could. The first reflection we must embrace is dignity. Those who do not feel worthy unconsciously reject opportunities. You may study hard, work hard, apply for jobs, send proposals, but if your inner voice whispers, I don't deserve it, you sabotage yourself at every step. Money doesn't come because the door is locked from within. When you start speaking to money as to a trusted friend, what changes first is not your bank account. What changes is your stance. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop believing that prosperity is a sin. That is a silent revolution. Self-respect creates room for abundance. The second reflection is about flow. Life cannot tolerate stagnation. Water that stands still rots. A mind that stands still turns restless. Money trapped in fear dissolves. Money is meant to circulate. It comes and it goes. Its function is to serve. When you pay a bill, you are not just losing resources. You are returning energy to a chain that sustained your life. When you receive, you are not just collecting numbers. You are receiving proof that your work had value for someone. This is why Florence taught, bless the entrance, bless the exit. If you curse the exit, the flow breaks. If you give thanks, the river keeps running. What comes back is not magic. It is the natural consequence of a mind that doesn't hold too tightly, doesn't push away, but allows the current to flow. The third reflection is about community. Money is never just individual, it is collective. When one person changes their relationship with money, they inspire others. Margaret inspired Rosa. Rosa inspired Sarah. Sarah inspired Carmen. Each individual victory became a light for someone else. That's why Florence's message spread and survived for generations. And that is why we are talking about it here, a century later. Abundance is not a private possession. It is a field. When you transform, you open space for your family, your friends, your community to shift as well. What starts as personal discipline grows into a social current. Now we arrive at the final practice. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine money as a person standing in front of you. Look into its face. What expression do you see? Distrust, distance, or warmth and closeness? If you see coldness, it may be the result of harsh words you have spoken over the years. If you see kindness, it may be because it already feels the respect rising within you. What would you say to money today? Perhaps it is time to apologize. Perhaps it is time to say, I welcome you as a blessing. I recognize you as a divine gift. I invite you to remain in my life. This simple visualization, practiced daily, builds a bridge between your conscious mind and your subconscious. That bridge is where real change is sealed. Understand this clearly. This practice is not about getting rich overnight. It is not a magic formula. It is a path. It is training. It is gradual transformation. But it is inevitable. Each thank you, each blessing, each conscious invitation rewires your relationship with life itself. And the results appear not only in money, they appear in serenity, in healthier relationships, in emotional stability, in clarity of purpose. Money is just the first messenger of a larger transformation. At the core, all of this is about reconciliation. Reconciliation with yourself, with your past, with your faith, with your right to receive without guilt and give without fear. Money is the symbol of that reconciliation. When you treat it as a friend, you are actually treating yourself with dignity. You are healing generations of limiting beliefs. You are opening a door so that your children and grandchildren do not inherit the same chains. This is no small thing. It is immense. It is a quiet revolution that expands outward. So what is the final step? Choose one phrase to begin this new relationship today. When money arrives, say, thank you for coming. When it leaves, say, go and return multiplied. When it feels absent, say, I invite you with love. Don't wait to feel ready. Practice it even when it feels small. A gesture repeated with consistency transforms destiny. That is how philosophy stops being theory and becomes life. And let me leave you with one last reminder. Money is not the end goal. It is not the finish line. It is a companion on the journey. It is a teacher. It is a mirror. When you see it this way, prosperity stops being about numbers and starts being about alignment. Alignment with your values, your discipline, your dignity, your sense of purpose. The bank balance will change, yes, but more importantly, your inner balance will change. And that is the foundation of a truly abundant life. If you stayed with me until the end, leave a mark in the comments. Write, I treat money as my friend. That will show me you walked this entire path today, and that you are part of the circle of those who don't just listen, but apply. And remember, your story can inspire someone else. Your small act of transformation may ignite hope in a friend, a stranger, maybe even an entire family. That is the ripple effect Florence dreamed of. That is the living proof that money, when treated with respect, can be a channel of blessings that extend far beyond ourselves.